Hi, everybody. This is day 1453. 1453 days since Richard was brutally murdered premeditatedly on Fort Bliss. Um, there's just no other option. The evidence is too stark. The evidence is too clear. The evidence is overwhelming, mounting evidence for it. And so we'll talk a little bit about why this is, what's going on, what is going on in this case, and the levels of what we have had to go through as a family in order to get justice for our son Richard, who was a whistleblower reporting criminal trafficking, and the evidence is getting more and more evident, um, mounting in that also, and so much so that we're getting more and more um, support for it, um, institutional support for it, and we receive breaking news from Washington, D.C. Another agency um, confirming of an open, active, ongoing investigation into Richard's case. So there are multiple active, ongoing investigations in Richard's case on the state level and on the federal level. And I think that's very important for everyone to understand, and that's why the evidence is mounting even more because of the support that we're getting now. And part of that is because of what has happened with Jules Chan. Okay. Um, they cannot ignore Jules Chan. His paper trail is, you know, let's just say wasn't sanitized, um, after we found out who he was. Because, okay, so uh, this is the story. He was acting anonymously. Okay, he was acting anonymously. He had unjust support to act anonymously. And what do I mean by that? To run a for-profit business, his Instagram account, the Real Fit Fam El Paso, to run that. And, now he's even supporting Bill Hicks. He wants to support the usurper DA, right? I think, to me, any kind of support of Bill Hicks right now, the usurper district attorney, I would hope that the investigators would look at that as bribery. Okay, they need to investigate that as bribery because Jules Chan should have got attorneys, and maybe he did. Maybe he had attorneys really early on, but because he was behind the curtain, so to speak, and nobody knew who he was, and he just felt like he was covered, right? That's why I put up that little meme with Richard as a sunburst breaking through the cover. And I don't know if I did a good job, with that. I love it because Richard is breaking through his beams, his his light, his laser light is breaking through the cover and exposing. And in this case, in this part, because there's so many aspects of Richard's case, he's exposing Jules Chan. Okay. And Jules Chan just was, I don't know, he didn't, I guess he didn't think that anybody would ever even look and care, right? Um, or even have the time to look and care, because in order to find him as a registered agent of the Real Fit Femme El Paso, you're working backwards. You start with the Real Fit Femme El Paso and who's running this thing, right? Who's behind this thing? Who's making money on this thing, right? And you're working backwards. It's difficult. It's difficult if you have the person already, and then it's easy to find the LLC. But if you're at the business level and you're trying to find out who's behind it all, and they have been working behind a curtain under a cover, and even UTEP, and even Bob Moore's wife, Kathleen Gannon, was complaining about them being having this conflict of interest, having this lack of transparency, because in the articles, and I'll post up those articles. I was spending a lot of time trying to put together the information today, to publish also an article on our Facebook, on so that everyone could understand what's going on here. But in the articles, he says it that he is under a different set of rules than a normal journalist, right? He can be discredited, he could be disgusting, he could be disgraceful, he can get away with that, right? And he can feed the public what they want. Um, uh, this it's very it's very interesting, and I'll put that out tomorrow. I guess I'll put it out tomorrow. But we've been going through it with a fine tooth comb, and it's just very, very revealing. Um, and and it shows you this conflict of interest right away. Why did he want to be undercover? Why didn't he want to say, look, I'm the guy that's so successful. I'm the guy that's making all this money with the Instagram, the Real Fit Fam El Paso. I'm the guy. Why wasn't he doing that? Well, because and I'll read out his history. He is lead public health and safety officer, response logistics, which is very important, at Garda World Federal Services. So that's what he's been doing since 2018. Okay, which is interesting. Garda World Federal Services. Um, then before that, lead public health and safety officer, medical at Garda World Federal Services, public health preparedness liaison at the City of El Paso Department of Health. Okay. Um, and he was the public health preparedness liaison strategic national stockpile coordinator at the City of El Paso, Texas. Also, a captain in the Medical Service Corps, because he's an Army reservist, U.S. Army reservist. He is part of the U.S. Army family. Um, Director of Communications, Public Safety at the University of Texas at Austin. Communications, Public Safety at, and I hope, correct me. This is just off of his LinkedIn. So, if there's a mistake in here, then, he might have made a mistake on his LinkedIn or whatever. Um, and it goes on and on. Deputy Director of Supply Chain Management at the U.S. Army. Director of Wounded Warrior Remote Care Clinic at U.S. Army. Medical Service Operations and Logistics Officer at U.S. Army. And that matters a lot. This whole logistics matters a lot, because who else is logistics? Well, Nadal Baim is logistics, right? He's logistics. And absolutely, when you're working with logistics like this and you're working with security like this, you're working with uh, Fort Bliss CID agents, which is a very small group. So that would include Tavita Nusa. That would include um, Marlon Soto, right? And if you're working with logistics, you're working with a lot of people, but that would absolutely cross paths with Nadal Baim and Bradford Bugado. And when you're medical like this and you're doing things like even what he's doing right now, that would cross paths with James Courtney Hart from the VA. So, absolutely, they are, El Paso and Fort Bliss aren't that big. They're crossing paths. And you're talking about years and years. He's been there for years and years. You know, um, very, very settled with his business, with all of his security and logistics and healthcare and all of that is all very tied to Fort Bliss and El Paso. And so he was first-hand responder to the Walmart mass shooting. And, that whole coordination of what he, y'all, uh, he was absolutely part of that. So, thank you, Anicia. And here he is running the Real Fit Fam El Paso. Thank you, Anicia, for coming on, right? With a group of people that, you know, they leave a trail because you cannot work a business and handle all this money and do all this other stuff. It's like Nadal Baim leaving the trail of his bidding, right? His bidding to the El Paso Police Department to provide them with equipment and most specifically ammunition, right? And he is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3. G3, y'all, that's operations. So they can't, the law enforcement can't ignore this. It can't ignore these breaches in security. And the breaches in security in Richard's case happened long before Richard was forcibly removed and murdered. Okay? The breaches in security happened long before. And whatever happened, and since this is on all of our minds, of most people on their minds, what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania to President Trump, the attempted assassination on President Trump, which, very clearly he almost lost his life, but Richard did lose his life because of a security breach. And of course, the Walmart mass shooting had a security breach. And I'm going to reveal to you some information that very few people know about the Walmart mass shooting, because these security breaches are documented. And we know that the day that Richard was forcibly taken and murdered, that he was under, because he's a whistleblower, he was under a security watch. His detail did not show up that day. They were complacent, right? So, it's a huge security breach that caused Richard's ongoing retaliation and also being taken and murdered, and also this cover up. And so we have all of the corroborating evidence for that. It's just mounting and mounting and mounting. And like President Trump's, I think this is a really, and I'm going to tell you about the Walmart too, very clear, since it's fresh on everybody's mind, that no way should that 20-year-old who no way uh, worked on his own. This is not a lone shooter, okay? This is no way. It all needs to be investigated. He's not a lone shooter, just like Patrick Crusius, not a lone shooter, not a lone shooter, 100% not a lone shooter. Okay, so the breaches of security in the cover up is also a concern, and they're trying to uh, just get away with murder legally, right? And then it's kind of like what my daughters and we were talking about, is that they are so strict with all of the seatbelt stuff and the kids' seats and all of that. And I totally understand. But wait a minute. People are getting away with security breaches that are costing lives of our soldiers, almost costing the life of our candidate for president. Um, and of course, there were security breaches. Um, all over the place with Vanessa Guillen. There was security breaches with Austin Hawke. There was security breaches with Caleb Smither. There was security breaches with Enrique Roman Martinez. There was security breaches with so many more. And we spend billions and billions of dollars on security. And yet we have security breaches everywhere. And it's costing our nation so much money. And of course, the lives of our most precious assets. And going to the Walmart mass shooting, and this is, you have to understand, Jules Chan was part of the response team, the original response team to the Walmart mass shooting. It is the original response team, a group from this original response team in Richard's investigation that are criminally targeting us, that have been harassing us. And Jules Chan, part of the original response team for the Walmart mass shooting, is associating with the criminal group that was also part of the original response team in Richard's case, including the prime suspects of Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart and more, and Bob Moore, who doesn't even want to respond to us. And now, and Jules Chan is associating with them, right? Who are targeting and harassing and threatening and bombarding us for years with the threats and the harassment and the vile and the racist and the, terrible sexually offensive messaging that we have gotten over and over and over again for years. So that's the group that he has chosen to be with. And he has a history of being with original response teams, right? Okay, so in the Walmart mass shooting, Walmart had gotten information. The headquarters of Walmart had gotten information that the Cielo Vista Walmart, that mall, that Walmart, had been targeted for um, for violence, for some kind of violent activity. And the Walmart, now this is all documented, but it's very little known, but Walmart headquarters sent, I would say, from adding everything up, uh, about $500,000 to that Walmart in El Paso for extra security. But there was a security breach. Why? There was not one security guard on that day, August 3rd, 2019, in that store. Now, understand this. This is not just any kind of store. This is a store that sells weapons. Okay? This is a store that sells weapons and ammunition. There always needs to be a security guard wherever weapons and ammunition is sold, and other weapons. There was not one, because this is what happened. The manager decided to give that $500,000 out in bonus money. Now, that is really troubling. And we need to know who received that bonus money, right? I mean, in an investigation, I'm sure they know. I'm sure they know. I'm sure they investigated that, right? But we as the public don't know all that information, because you have Judge Medrano sitting on that case, not scheduling one thing. Not scheduling one thing. I mean, it is so criminal what he's doing. Such a betrayal. Far worse than the piddle paddle stuff that they hold us to day in and day out, while they are obstructing justice, not even issuing a simple mental health evaluation. And I know I say that over and over again, because it's just something very little that he could do, and he doesn't even do that. So you have Jules Chan right in the middle of the security breaches. And of course, let's not forget that he was part of the emergency intake center between 2021 and 2022, coordinating for the medical care there on the emergency intake center. Well, between what is her name, the CYS person, Ann Ogle, between Ann Ogle's failure and his why didn't he report? I mean, 85,000 missing children, right? And we have from even the DES and many other witnesses, we have it confirmed that the emergency intake center was so bad. And Jules Chan was in the middle of that. Jules Chan was in the middle of Walmart. Jules Chan was in the middle of the emergency intake center. Both of those are failures. Both of those are failures of security. Both of those are failures in justice, right? And Jules Chan's in the middle of it. Now, he needs to talk what he knows, right? He needs to speak up for the children's sake, for the victims' families of the Walmart sake. Where is he? Where is he? He's with the criminal group that was part of the original response team in Richard Halliday's case, the whistleblower from Fort Bliss that was taken and brutally murdered. And that group includes the prime suspects in the murder of Richard, Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart. And that's where Jules Chan is. Harassing, you know, uh, colluding. And, of course, that site was taken down. Multiple times site was taken down. But it doesn't change the fact that he was there with them instead of reaching out to us. Respectfully reaching out to us. Communicating with us. It's not too late. But he should have reached out to us. And but instead, he decided to target Richard because, and why do I say that? Because we asked him very kindly before we knew who he was to please take down the defamatory story, fake story that was up there, or please publish our story next to it. Give both sides of the story. And there was no response. And he still has not put up our story. Yet, he is promoting, which costs a lot of money. It's donating money, right? It's donating money to Bill Hicks. Yet, he's promoting Bill Hicks in the DA's office. And let me tell you, that's stinky to me. Because when you realize that he has all these conflicts of interest because of his secret clearances, and with FitFam El Paso, or the Real FitFam El Paso Instagram site, that is a for-profit site, and he wants to stay hidden, covered up, but yet he is saying in articles that he has inside knowledge, and he's using his inside knowledge. That's his secret clearance, y'all. That's his positions. He's using his positions at Garda World Federal Services, at the El Paso Department of Public Health, at the Strategic National Stockpile Coordinator of the El Paso City of El Paso, Texas, as his medical, his military service in the in El Paso, and all the connections with that on Fort Bliss. And that's not me saying it. He is saying it. He has admitted, just like Leilani Hart has admitted. He's left that paper trail. And it is highly, highly illegal. He's operating highly illegally. And to see someone operate highly illegally and then forfeit their very successful, profitable, the Real FitFam El Paso, who would be so reckless to not renew their limited liability? Who would be so reckless when you have a very successful You know how hard it is to have a successful business? It's difficult, especially if you're doing it on your own. You don't have connections, but if you have connections that are pushing you forward, that are, highlighting articles and getting your name out there, and all of these connections, that makes it easier for you. But you still have to do the service, right? You still have to do the job. And here he has this work this work and this profitable business as the Real Fit Fam El Paso. And he's so reckless that he just forfeits it, just lets it go, doesn't want to renew it. Why? My question is why? And because I'm a Mises School of Economics person, okay, that's why that's what brought me to Ron Paul, because Ron Paul is a Mises guy, right? He's a Mises School of Economics person. And, when you love economics and you look at things, you're like, okay, if you are documenting your business, you have to list your employees. You have to list what you've paid your employees, right? When you're turning your taxes, that exposes a lot of things. That's very transparent. So, but if you just like feel so emboldened that you can forfeiture your limited liability and avoid, I don't know if he avoided paying taxes or not. Okay. I don't know. Maybe he paid them. I don't know. But I'm just saying, that recklessness, I think that the only logical connection with that is to avoid having to disclose all of the information. And that would be in the taxes. So, clearly to me, that is evidence that he knew that they were up to no good, and that was an avoidance and a cover up again. But Richard is bursting through the cover up. His light, his light shining like rays, bursting through the cover up. And so, for his sake, for in the memory of Richard, um, and to confirm that this was true, and we can confirm it to the world. If I would just tell you, hey, he forfeited his LLC, he might go and do it the next day, and no one would, no, he didn't. He owns it. See, he owns it. But in our case, what we decided to do when we found out was to buy it. So we own FitFam El Paso LLC, which was the LLC that the assumed name, the Real FitFam El Paso, which we also own now. And we also own FitFam El Paso. And why did we do that? For people to understand that there are breaches in security, that there is an abuse of power, that there is criminal activity going on in these original response teams, that we pay a lot of money and trust. We put a lot of our trust that they will do a good job. That they will do a good job. And clearly, the job was not good with Walmart. And clearly, the job was not good with the Emergency Intake Center. And clearly, the job was not good with Richard's case. And clearly, the job was not good for President Trump. He got away with his life. Richard didn't. And the victims of Walmart, they didn't. And $500,000. Not one person, not one security, not one guard of world, not one security person was there in the Walmart on August 3rd, 2019, on the day of the mass shooting. That's a breach in security in a store that sells weapons and ammunition and other weapons. And so I hope this clarifies so much, right? And I don't know the whole way forward. We're figuring that out because it is possible that Jules Chan owes us a lot of information, right? To, that he has to hand over the information, or he has to, I don't know if he's at the, okay, this is my notice to Jules Chan. Jules Chan, do not destroy any of your paperwork, any of your records. Do not destroy. Keep all of your communications, all of your records, anything that has to do with the real FitFam El Paso, FitFam El Paso LLC, FitFam El Paso. Do not destroy it. Keep it safe, because there are ongoing and active investigations on the state level and the federal level. And this is, and I need to put it in writing, but I just thought about it during this this live stream. Absolutely do not destroy any of the information, because being in the position that Jules Chan was, absolutely makes him connected to David Candelara, Dallas Hart, James Hart, Nadal Baim, Bradford Bugado, and and on and on. Tavita Nusa, Marlon Soto, also the FBI, Jesus Nieto Jr. And so if you're wondering why they're getting unjust support there, it's, very clear why. And if, all communications, all documents, all records, anything to do with FitFam El Paso LLC, do not destroy. Do not destroy it. So this will help us. We will go down any valley, climb any mountain, cross any stream, and even go into FitFam El Paso, because if he is promoting Bill Hicks the usurper, which he clearly knows that Bill Hicks is a usurper because he's been watching. He is with that criminal group that's part of the original response team in Richard's case. He has been watching. And he knows that I say it all the time. Bill Hicks is a usurper in the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office. Okay, I say it so much, I know it by heart. I know it all by heart. And, so he knows, and he's promoting him right now. And yet he won't put up a Gold Star Family's story. He won't be respectful and put up a story, and it's not a long one, for a Gold Star family who was brutally murdered on Fort Bliss. And so I think that's very, very revealing. So if there's any questions, thank you, Danielle, for your prayers, for your star, for justice. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this is all, and I think everyone sees it. It's absolutely getting exposed. Things are coming together. Things like a year ago or 2 years ago that, were like Nadal Baim. Who was he? Oh, the FBI man that walked into the Dollar General. No, he's now sells bullets to the El Paso Police Department, right? He's part of Western Frontier Trading, LLC, who has more. He has conflicts of interest. He has individuals that he is associated with. And, these investigations are ongoing, and they will reveal to everybody who those individuals are. And it really, just keep it in your mind that there's two very important points that as a family we have decided are essential for everyone to understand. And that is that this is a criminal group. The people behind the crimes of Richard are a criminal group, part of the original response team in Richard's case. That's very important for everyone to know, because look at President Trump, what happened to him. Everyone knows that it has to be that Secretary of or the Secret Service, who's ever in charge of the Secret Service, that female, right? She absolutely needs to be fired. She has to resign. And it's an internal security breach. Just like what happened in Walmart was a security breach, just like what happened with Richard, way before he even was, before the main security breach, but before that it was a security breach. Just like DES, Thomas Kane admitted to all these security breaches, admitted to a young girl living in the barracks being pimped out to the soldiers. That was part of his security uh, guards. Um, that's a security breach. And Jules Chan working for Garda World is a security breach. And he really, everything he has done is so illegal. So illegal. And is under investigation. Okay. It's um, it's part of Richard's case. It's part of the Walmart case. It's part of the emergency intake center case. Yeah. So thank you so much. Okay. So here's Francisco again. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw you interviewed on FitFam in front of the Cassidy Gate in 2020. I have no idea. I was interviewed so many times, and I'm sure. And I'm sure. But what I'm talking about right now is the declaration of death of Richard, the official declaration of death by the United States government, um, because of what we gave them, the mountains of evidence. And for Jules Chan to not post our story, to not reach out to us respectfully, but to threaten us, to harass us, to bully us? Are you kidding me? To insert himself in this capital murder case like he is? You know, uh, time is very short. And I've been saying that lately. Time is short. And I don't know in God how this is all breaking, but yeah, I was interviewed by many people during during all of that, and they absolutely, um, I would say that the media, well, Bob Moore is discredited, and he's a disgust, and he's disgraceful, and of course KTSM with David Candelara, with Natasia Paloma Thomas, with Danae Katzen. There is no way that you live in El Paso and you are in the journalistic business and you do not look at your sources, and then you're talking to a desperate family. A desperate family. I mean, the army had kicked us out. I've also seen Richard featured many times on FitFam. That's what directed most of us to this Facebook account in the first place. Well, the FitFam paperwork, I think since we own FitFam LLC now, FitFam El Paso, since we own the DBAs, the assumed names, um, I think that they have to hand them over to us. I'm not sure. It's all gonna, it'll all work out. Um, and what is happening with Danae Katzen? Um, Danielle, I just don't know how people can be so evil and corrupt, especially when it comes to crimes against children and the murder of Richard by those he trusted. Absolutely. And, it it's, this whole Cutter thing. This whole Cutter thing. Cutter is very corrupt. We have learned how corrupt Cutter is. And or Qatar, some people call it Qatar. Um, and when Richard was deployed in Qatar, that is when he was telling us, it is so bad. It is so bad. I'm not staying in the army. It is so bad. I'm going to do my time. Rob told him, just keep your head down. Just do your time. Get out. Okay. We didn't want him to go in the first place. I fought like hell to say my mind so that he would not go in because of things that we were seeing in the military. And we were not in agreement because we saw the breaches in security. We saw the abuse of power. And we were warning him about that. And so when he went in, he was absolutely educated about what to look out for. But he was so happy. He didn't think it was as bad as we said, right? And it was worse. But he was just an aspiring young man and he wanted to be a private investigator. He wanted to be a criminal investigator. He wanted to be an investigator in the CID. And so he went in with gusto. He went in to do his very best. He was number one as a distinguished graduate there at his basic training. And then when he went to AIT, he did it again and was the distinguished graduate for that. So for his cycle. And so he went in with gusto to give his all. And he went to Qatar. He went to Qatar and he said, no way. It's so bad. It's so bad. So he was expecting some badness, but he said it was so bad. And he started reporting it because, he went to CPS. So it had to do with children. And don't forget that, one of those children could have been Belen because she was so young and being exploited. Clearly, she was being exploited and groomed. Clearly. And, because of what we have on record from Marlon Soto, the CID, who absolutely would be working with Jules Chan of Garda World, who absolutely would be working with the VA, James Hart, would absolutely be, cross paths with Nadal Bayim, with the logistics, with, supplies, and absolutely cross paths with Bradford Bugado. And Bradford Bugado is really into fitness, you know. So maybe that's another way they could cross paths. But that all needs to be investigated because absolutely there is suspicion that all of that, they would all know each other. And then where do they end up? Where does he end up going? He doesn't go to us, respectfully. No, he goes to Leilani Hart and Dallas Hart and to that group, that criminal group. God's blessings to you and your family and friends. And it's just disgusting and despicable. And don't forget that that group for the and I'm really glad that this is being brought up because um, that group, that criminal group, at the beginning, they weren't sending us vile and vulgar messages. They were saying, "We love you. We love Richard." That's what they were saying. Why? Because they were trying to frame the whole direction of Richard's investigation. Misframe it. Give us misinformation. Lead us in the wrong directions. And it wasn't until a whistleblower came forward in January of 2022, things got a little, because Leilani Hart's name was then exposed, and Dallas Hart's name was then exposed, and CID Tavita Nusa of was exposed, and he lost his badge, and he was removed from separated from the military. And it wasn't until because at that time Yvonne Rosales was there, right? And it wasn't until they removed her in January of 2023 that they then unleashed their true nature of threats, harassment, sexual explicit messaging to intimidate us, and over again for months. When did it start? The beginning of 2023, when Bill Hicks let them go, let the dogs go, and I will look the other way. His attack dogs, or whoever's attack dogs, whoever's behind all of that, they were let go to attack us, to attack the whistleblower, to attack us, to obstruct justice, to retaliate against witnesses, and on and on. So that began very clear. So that's when the media showed their true colors. But at the beginning, Danae Katzen was like, "Oh yes, Mrs. Halliday, yeah, I have information for you." You see what I'm saying? And of course, FitFam cannot be trusted. Look, you've got Jules Chan, who is breaching security. What he's doing is so illegal, profiting off of his inside knowledge. This is so dangerous and so illegal. He cannot be trusted in this. He has not acted like an officer and a gentleman. He has not acted to earn that uniform, to earn his rank. He has not earned that at all. And now he's donating, like, "Oh, I'm so benevolent, I'm donating." And, the cause is benevolent. But he has a conflict of interest because he's been acting illegally and he's promoting Bill Hicks, and yet he won't give a little spot to the story of the Gold Star family of Richard Halliday, who now, news alert, we own FitFam El Paso LLC. We have the DBAs, FitFam El Paso, the real FitFam El Paso, doing business as. I think that's newsworthy that the Gold Star family had to resort to this to get to truth, right? I think that's newsworthy, Bob Moore. I think that's newsworthy, Jules Chan. You can put that up on your FitFam El Paso, the real FitFam El Paso Instagram, with I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of followers. and targeting the people of El Paso. That's your target uh, audience. God's blessings to you and your family and friends. It's just disgusting and despicable. So glad you had proof. Innocent Richard Halliday trying to do the right thing, murdered by the very persons that he trusted. Yes, and his security detail did not show up for duty. And he was forcibly removed and murdered because of a breach of security. And I think that's really important with all of this um, going on right now. The breaches of security. I think that's the theme. And the security business is really the business of Jules Chan. And he has abused his power and he has failed. Walmart failed. The intake center failed. Richard's case failed. And it goes on and on. This is abuse of power. So thank you everyone for coming on, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you for leaving all your comments. Oh, Danielle, why didn't his security detail show up? Did he know something? I don't know. And why did the Walmart manager that received 500, well, half a million, okay? I don't want to put an exact figure on it. Why didn't he have, or she have, at least one security guard with a gun in a Walmart that was warned that something might happen, and they sell weapons and they sell ammunition? That's a security breach. So thank you so much, everyone. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.